What if your silence isn't actually about protecting the relationship? It's about protecting yourself from what he might say or do whenever you tell him the truth. There's a specific mechanic to this kind of silence that begins the moment that you become aware of something that might fundamentally change the dynamic if you speak it out loud. And it might be a feeling that you've been kind of managing for a few months, or a resentment that's grown from kind of swallowing a bunch of smaller resentments or feelings, or honestly just any truth that threatens the stability that you've worked probably for a long time to maintain. Well, after all of that, you've probably made the decision to keep your mouth shut because you've calculated that the cost of his reaction is higher than the cost of your own silence. What you're actually protecting here, what you're actually protecting yourself from, isn't really just his response. It's the definitive answer that his response is going to give you about whether or not the relationship is going to survive truths and honesty. Somewhere deep down inside of yourself, you already know the answer to that probably, but I understand as well as you do that knowing it and naming it are two different thresholds. Once you name it, the silence has to end, right? And that's really uncomfortable. It's really, really uncomfortable. The silence kind of becomes a way to keep the relationship in a provisional state where you're not actually working, things aren't actually broken, they're just kind of perpetually at risk. And that liminal space feels more tolerable than the finality of a choice. Sometimes your withdrawal isn't really about his protection. Sometimes it's about keeping the option of leaving him invisible to him, and then still therefore theoretically available to yourself. You're not really protecting the connection with your silence. You're kind of just protecting yourself from being the person that has to end it. And so you need to start asking yourself what happens if you do tell him the truth. At least then you're gonna know exactly what you're choosing to stay for.